maybe share something with our viewers in terms of what's going on, what you're seeing from an international standpoint?
Yeah, so there's a couple things going on right now, and we can talk about international, and I'll jump onto that. But what you have to do is, especially if you're in our industry, you have to understand that very quickly the centers of care are going to be changing. So we are forever going to be moving forward in a pandemic environment, and we've just been hit with it. And if you go through history, this is not anything new. It's certainly been new since, for the most part, you can certainly attribute polio in its time, and then back to 1918 with influenza, and it's happened throughout the history of mankind. But now we've got the ability through technology, virtual engagement, telehealth. You're going to start to see centers of care, ambulatory surgical centers are going to have to start to partition out and parse out where pandemics will be handled in certain centers of care, where right now it's been generically handled in a hospital, thereby, to your point, shutting down every elective surgery. And when we talk about elective surgery, it's scary because those are life-saving surgeries. If you have colon cancer, that's elective surgery. You're putting that off for 4 or 5 months. The numbers on oncology patients, the numbers on structural heart failure patients, when you start to push them down range, you start to have a much more severe sort of therapeutic approach to this by the time we bring those people on board. We can't do that any longer. So that's number one, centers of care. Pay attention to that. If you're in the industry, private equity, venture money is now going into building out ambulatory surgical centers. On the international front, this past year, all the companies used to go to Europe to do their clinical trials. We used to go over there for CE mark. We used to get a lot of data. We would build out product there. We'd get enough data there. We'd come back to the US and pursue 510K with clinicals and or IDE PMA. Europe shut down on clinical trials. That was one of the biggest gifts that the medtech industry for the US could have gotten, because what it's done now, it's driven all that clinical activity back to the US. And for those that are entrepreneurs, you've got to look. MDIC, Medical Device Innovation Council, has EFS, early feasibility studies. So they are now able to speed up the interaction with the FDA. It doesn't compromise it, but one of the biggest barriers to innovation in the US was feasibility studies and getting contracts and arrangements in place with hospitals. It wasn't the FDA. It was getting through advisory boards and getting through those board-driven decisions by hospitals. So the industry's come together and has fast-tracked that and reduced the time by about 50 to 60%. So the FDA, AdvaMed, MDIC have all really created this lovely opportunity back here in the US that has had innovation come back to the US now for that emerging tech startup world. We still have hotspots of innovation. I just came back from Israel a couple months ago. We were there. We do a lot of work in Israel. Pound for pound, probably the most innovative medtech country in the world. You still have some work going on in Germany and France on the structural side, but it's been really battered because of the EU outlook on clinical trials. China is a market in itself. Most of China is doing their acquisitions even for just in-country licensing and ownership. So you're seeing transactions go on there, and they're building their own medtech system there. It doesn't mean that there's not opportunities there, but it's a very difficult market to move into, especially for the startup marketplace, and even for the large strategics to get in there and get and do business there. So that for the most part, the U.S. has had a resurgence in technology, acquisitions, large strategic spending money. Venture money has been pent up now. They're looking to spend it. A rounds are going to be tough. Right now, the venture money is saving its dry powder to feed the kids around the table, meaning the B and C rounds, because they got to keep them healthy to exit them eventually. So, that's the general case of international domestic balance in the medtech industry right now.